Let me ask you this, in a sense, philosophical question. We've gone a little bit into philosophy today. I believe, many people in my own state believe, that healthcare is a right, R-I-G-H-T, regardless of income, that every American has the right to the best quality healthcare that the system can offer regardless of income, that if you're a low-income kid, you're a wealthy kid, you have the same opportunity to access the healthcare system. Do you believe that?
I believe that every person ought to get good health care, and the Hippocratic Oath says that I would provide health care regardless of whether the person pays me or not. So I definitely believe that people need health care.
Give the mic over to Senator Paul.
Thank you very much. With regard to the idea of whether or not you have a right to a health care, you have to realize what that implies. It's not an abstraction. I'm a physician. That means you have a right to come to my house and conscript me. It means you believe in slavery. It means that you're going to enslave not only me, but the janitor at my hospital, the person who cleans my office, the assistants who work in my office, the nurses. If you have a right to their services, basically, once you imply a belief in a right to someone's services, do you have a right to plumbing? Do you have a right to water? Do you have a right to food? You're basically saying that you believe in slavery. You're saying you believe in taking and extracting from another person. Our founding documents were very clear about this. You have a right to pursue happiness, but there's no guarantee of physical comfort. There's no guarantee of concrete items. In order to give something concrete or someone's service, you got to take it from someone. So there's an implied threat of force. If I'm a physician in your community and you say you have a right to health care, do you have a right to beat down my door with the police, escort me away, and force me to take care of you? That's ultimately what the right to free health care would be. If you believe in a right to health care, you're believing in basically the use of force to conscript someone to do your bidding. Now, just because it's a noble thing to believe that we are obligated as Christians, we are obligated through the Hippocratic Oath, we have always done this. Since the beginning of modern medicine, we have always provided 100% access. I do it in exchange for privileges. I do it because I believe in the Hippocratic Oath, but my hospital also says to me, you can only operate in this hospital if you agree to see everyone coming through the emergency room. I always have. We have always treated. We have always had 100% access through our emergency room. Those were for emergencies. They're not the best place for primary care. We all agree with that. But we've always had 100% free access.
I think it's fair to say that Senator Paul and I have some slight philosophical differences. My profound question to Dr. Krauss is, do you, as an employee at a federally qualified health center, consider yourself as a slave?
I love my job. I chose to work there. I do not feel like a slave. Thank you.
The average Social Security benefit today is just $14,000 a year. I intend to do everything I can, not only to oppose vigorously any efforts to cut Social Security, I'm going to do everything that I can to expand Social Security benefits. And, in fact, the best way to expand Social Security is to ask the wealthiest people in our country to pay more into the system by scrapping the cap on income that is subject to the Social Security payroll tax. Mr. President, as you know, right now, a billionaire pays the same amount into Social Security as someone who makes $117,000 a year. You got a multimillionaire here, somebody's making $50 million, somebody's making $117,000. They both contribute the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund. This is regressive, this is unfair, this is absurd. If we lifted this cap and applied the Social Security payroll tax to income above $250,000, not $117,000, but $250,000 a year, we could not only extend the solvency of Social Security for decades to come, which is what we want to do, but we could also provide the resources necessary to expand Social Security benefits. And that is exactly what we should be doing, and that, in fact, is what the American people want us to do. Do we stand with them and expand Social Security, or do we listen to those on Wall Street and corporate America who want to cut Social Security benefits and in some cases want to privatize Social Security?
All right, Bernie Sanders is offering you free stuff. He wants to give you free health care. He'd give you a free car. He'd give you a free house. But guess what? There is no free lunch. That just means somebody else is paying for it, but they're not showing you who's paying for it. It is a disservice to the country for Bernie Sanders to say he's going to give you all more Social Security and, you know, money's going to grow on trees and everybody will be rich and there'll be a chicken in every pot. The problem is Social Security is already short of money. For the last 5 years, Social Security pays out more than what comes in. Why? It's a simple demographic fault. People ask me, whose fault is it? Is it Republicans' fault or Democrats' fault? I say, nope, it's your grandparents' fault for having too many damn kids. After World War II, there were these big families. The baby boom happened after World War II. But then the baby boom didn't do their job. You didn't have enough kids. And then your grandkids didn't have enough kids. So what happened is we used to have 16 workers for every retired person. Now it's 3 workers for every retired person. And we're living longer. Now, some of these are good things. Living longer, good thing. Less workers, smaller families, maybe a good thing, maybe not. But the thing is that Social Security is short of money. You can't promise people more money. You got to figure out how to make do with less money. But we can fix it. I have a bill that would actually fix Social Security. It's not fun, so I'll promise you, you're not going to love it. You have to gradually raise the age of eligibility. For my age and younger, it just has to get a little older, a couple months every year, but it's got to go to 70 for Social Security and Medicare. And I know nobody wants to hear that, but the opposite is I come up and tell you, everything's okay. You can have whatever you want and it's free, but we're going to destroy the country if we do that.
The criticism is to pay for this. What you're really asking for is one of the biggest tax hikes in history. And that is the criticism.
But, Chris, that is an unfair criticism for the following reason. If you are paying now $10,000 a year to a private health insurance company, and I say to you hypothetically, you're going to pay $5,000 more in taxes, or actually less than that, but you're not going to pay any more private health insurance, are you going to be complaining about the fact that I've saved you $5,000 in your total bills? So it's demagogic to say, oh, you're paying more in taxes. Let's also talk about we are going to eliminate private health insurance premiums and payments, not only for individuals, but for businesses as well. Again, we are the only country on earth that allows private insurance companies to rip us off. We spend 3 times more than the British, 50% more than the French. We can do better than we're doing right now.
But just to be clear, you are going to raise taxes to do this.
Yes, we will raise taxes. Yes, we will. But also let us be clear, Chris, because there's a little bit of disingenuity out there. We may raise taxes, but we are also going to eliminate private health insurance premiums for individuals and for business.
I think what's important about the tax debate is that we have to ask the question, where is money best spent? In the private sector and the government sector. I want a government really, really small. So small you can barely see it. So I want lower taxes and much more money in the private sector. My tax plan, however, is the only tax plan among any of the candidates on the stage that is part of a balanced budget plan. I put forward 3 plans that actually balance the budget over a 5-year period. Each of these plans have details on exactly where we'd cut. The question came up earlier, where would you cut? Nobody likes to say where they would cut. I've put pencil to paper and done 3 budgets that actually balance. I'm also in favor of a plan called the penny plan, where we'd just cut 1% across the board and that budget actually balances in less than 5 years. So I think what's extraordinary about my tax plan is it is in the context of balancing the budget. What's also extraordinary about my tax plan is it gets rid of the payroll tax. Democrats demagogue this issue to death, and when they do, they say, oh, a millionaire would get a bigger tax cut than someone making $10,000. That's proportionality, as Ben's trying to explain to folks. But the thing is if we get rid of the payroll tax, everybody's going to get a tax cut. And this is something that I think the public at large will support and could win an election.
There are no deductions under your plan?
Ours is 14.5% for corporations, 14.5% for individuals, no payroll tax for the employee, the business tax pays for Social Security, and there would be 2 remaining deductions, home mortgage and charity.
Does it matter at all that the gap between the rich and everyone else is widening?
Absolutely, and I think that we ought to look where income inequality seems to be the worst. It seems to be worst in cities run by Democrats, states run by Democrats, and countries currently run by Democrats. So the thing is, let's look for root causes. But I would also lay some blame at the feet of the Federal Reserve. I think the Federal Reserve has made this problem worse. By artificially keeping interest rates below the market rate, average ordinary citizens have a tough time earning interest, have a tough time making money. They're actually talking now about negative interest. The money as it's created through quantitative easing or other means tends to start out in the big banks in New York. And because we're now paying interest for them to keep the money there, much of that money has not filtered out into the economy. So what we're finding is there is increasing income disparity and income inequality. We also find that as the Federal Reserve destroys the value of the currency, what you're finding is that if you're poor, if you make $20,000 a year and you have 3 or 4 kids and you're trying to get by, as your prices rise or as the value of the dollar shrinks, these are the people that are hurt the worst. So really we need to re-examine whether we want a Federal Reserve that's involved so much in determining interest rates. We also need to look at root causes as to what caused the housing boom and the housing collapse. But the bottom line is, if you want less income inequality, move to a city with a Republican mayor or a state with a Republican governor. Thank you, sir.
The last 30 years, there has been a massive transfer of wealth from the middle class and working families of this country to the top 0.1%. And yes, my policies will demand that the top 1% and the largest corporations in this country start paying their fair share of taxes. Now, what do we propose? Real unemployment today, not official, but real unemployment is 10%. Youth unemployment is 30, 40, 50%. I believe we should rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, invest $1 trillion into our roads, bridges, water systems, rail, airports, and create up to 13 million jobs. I believe we should raise the minimum wage over a period of several years to do what Los Angeles and Seattle are doing, to $15 an hour, and have pay equity for women workers. I believe that we have to revise our disastrous trade policies so corporate America invests in this country rather than in China. In terms of Wall Street, 3 out of the 4 largest banks today are bigger than they were when we bailed them out because they were to fail. I think we should reestablish Glass-Steagall. I think we should eventually break up these large financial institutions which today have too much economic and political power. I think that in terms of campaign finance reform, a huge issue, we've got to overturn Citizens United, in my view, move to public funding of elections.